بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I would like to welcome you all to this new episode of Friday Talk, and the topic is religious pluralism and tolerance in Islam. Actually, this is a second part, but for I suppose there would be some people who didn't attend the first part, and also it's been a long time since I did the first part, so I will do a little bit of kind of summary through the first part in order to make sense for everybody. When we talk about religious pluralism in Arabic will be ta'dudiyat adyan, and tolerance is tasamuh. This is an important topic because it relates to how people, how we live together with people of other faith. And Oman has done pretty well in this area. In fact, it has a reputation of being tolerant and nurtured peaceful coexistence between people of different faiths. We do not have tensions in Oman compared to other parts of the world. So this is an important topic in that sense. So this is the content, and in the first part we kind of covered the first three, but I would go through them quickly today in order to make more sense. So I intend to complete the last 2 points, which is the ethical foundation of religious pluralism and tolerance, and why we should not focus on the religious truth and salvation rather than we look into these areas related to ethical dealing with each other. All right, so I said last time, unlike the pre-modern societies, which were marked by very clear-cut cultural and religious dividing boundaries. So we had Darul Islam and Darul Harb, or a board of peace and a board of war, or Darul Islam and Darul Masihiyya or Christendom, these two boards. But today, humanity lives in different kinds of societies. These societies today are vastly diverse of ethnicities, cultures, faiths, worldviews, political orientation, even lifestyles. So this is a new reality. And also, globalization has networked the world into a global village where no person can live in isolation, or you can't be indifferent to what goes around elsewhere. So also, despite this promotion of irreligiosity and secularism and liberalism, in some societies, religion has emerged afresh, even in the West. There is a reawakening of religious awakening, and therefore it plays an essential role in shaping people's conscience and behaviors. Therefore, dealing with religious pluralism and tolerance, it becomes indispensable in today's world. Now, the Islamic framework, first of all, there are many ways that religious pluralism has been conceptualized, but the two most fundamental is religious pluralism and tolerance that is concerned with religious truth and salvation, and religious pluralism that is concerned with ethical behavior. Also, it is called normative religious pluralism because it is based on the normal, universal behavior, good behavior. And Islam is promoting this one, normative religious pluralism. And it is very deeply rooted in the Quranic teachings. So this is not an idea that came from our scholars only, but it is right there in the Quran. Now, the Quran opposes any claim of religious exclusivism or religious inclusivism. So religious exclusivism is like you can find with some right-wing evangelical Christians who interpret the scripture in a literal sense by saying the only way to the Father is through Jesus. It means that everybody else is excluded. Or maybe a good example is the case of the Jews who claim to be their chosen people, and salvation is only for chosen people. That is something the Quran opposes. But also this religious inclusivism, where it's a postmodern thinking that there is no single truth, universal truth. There are multiple truths, and maybe there's no truth. Maybe you can make out your own truth. And we see this implementation in the ideas of Abrahamic accords with our neighbors, where they bring Christians and Jews and the Muslims in the same space, sacred space. This is something also Quran opposes. And the reason it opposes, because there are some commonalities and there are some diversities and particularities. So if you try to be exclusive, you ignore these commonalities. And if you try to be inclusive, you ignore the diversity and particularity in people's faith. So because pluralism and tolerance that is based also on religious truth and salvation cannot be reconciled. We cannot agree, people of different religions, we cannot agree on these issues. For example, between Muslims and Christians, or between Muslims and Hindus, and people of different religion, everyone, they think their religion is the truth, and their formula for salvation is the correct one, and therefore it's not possible, to reconcile this. And therefore, we can say that if we go that road, it is inherently hostile and antagonistic, all right, because of this exclusivity, and because it focuses on akhira dimension, or eschatological or akhira dimensions of religious claims. In this respect, normative pluralism that is promoted by Islam, which is based on ethical behavior, provides a very objective and practical solution for tolerance and for peaceful coexistence in contemporary societies of today. Why? Because it concentrates on inclusivity. Everybody is included. We can deal with each other in an ethical way, irrespective whether people of the same religion or people of other religion or people of no religion. We deal with them as human beings. We deal with them in ethical behavior. We focus on these dunya dimensions, rather than in the akhirah dimensions. We said the main objectives of this, normative religious pluralism in Islam. First of all, unlike other views of religious pluralism that is aimed to kind of tolerate people of other faith, Islamic religious pluralism is not a mere toleration of people of other faiths. We go beyond that, because it is a divine law. It is a sunnat ilahiyya, which is rooted in the Quran itself. So if its implementation is a necessity, for achieving calm, peace, love, and prosperity in any society, and its transgression will lead to tension, will lead to hate, wars, and destruction. All right. And the most critical transgression is when you move away from this universal worldly objective and you try to impose, the claims and the polemics and accusations related to the hereafter. Another critical transgression is when participants tend to use religious pluralism as a political tool, and we have seen this, people who want to exercise hegemony over other people of other faiths, or liberalists, they use this as a tool to kind of dilute religion, like the way they promote today LGBTQ and things like that. Now, we said the Quran presents 4 main objectives of normative religious pluralism. So first of all, knowledge of the other, or ta'aruf, and this should lead to mutual understanding between people of different religions. And then the cooperation with the other. We have been asked to, ta'awun, al-birr wa taqwa, that should lead to mutual engagement. And then we have to compete with the other in goodness, not in rancor. Tasabuk fil khayrat, that will lead for mutual contribution to the society. And the last one is supporting the other, or tadafu, that should lead for mutual support against oppression, because especially oppression of minorities, because it is our responsibility to make sure people who live in our societies, they have that freedom to practice their own religions. Now, we talk about the structural elements of religious pluralism. This process of normative religious pluralism, it has to be grounded on some very good foundation or good structure. And the Quran speaks about, commonality, and the feeling of unity that emerge from common features that are shared by people of different religious backgrounds. And, the Quran speaks about moral commonality, spiritual commonality, and environmental commonality. But also there's a diversity and constructive conversation. So if I just go quickly through each one of these, the Quran, asserts that there is a moral commonality, by explaining that people are created from one soul. We all, humanity, we came from the same soul. We came from Adam and Eve, and Adam and Eve came from the same soul. And, from them, dispersed, men and women, many men and women, across this different space and time. And we also share common moral values. The moral values are kind of universal, because it's a part of our fitra, it's part of our soul. So humanity, we have this moral commonality, all right, between all of us. But also there is a spiritual commonality, all right, because the Quran depicts this, human souls before our existence into the material world, when we existed in the realm, in the spiritual realm, or alim al-arwah, we were existing like a one harmonious body, obeying the commands of one God. When Allah asks us if we recognize him, alastu bi rabbikum, and we all replied bala. So everybody was there, the Muslim, the non-Muslims, people of no faith, they were all there, So there is this spiritual commonality. But also after the fall of our parents, Adam and Eve, from the garden, Allah promised not to leave the humanity in earthly life unguided. Thus, spiritual commonality between all human beings can be traced back from the guidance that we received from our Creator through one complete chain of prophethood, from Adam to Noah to Abraham to Moses to Jesus to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But also there are many other prophets that have not been mentioned to us, all right? The Quran speaks about no nation was not sent divine guidance. Now, the environmental commonality, the earth belongs to God only, and he created it for benefits of all humanity, not for only particular group of people. And human beings, don't own anything except we act as a trustee on behalf of Allah, during this earthly life for us. And Tawheed for us, it means God is one, but it also means all things belong to God. And they are all signs pointing to him. And he gave humans the role of trustee, Khalifa, for God's creation and for the environment. So everything he created also in balance, and he asks us not to upset the balance. Allah taghaw fil mizan, and he will account us for our behavior, how we deal with his creations. And humanity has been asked to protect the environment by minimizing their waste, and also by conserving natural resources. You know, I give you references on this so that you can reflect on these verses by yourself. I like this diagram. You know, I got it from a good friend and also a scholar who came to visit us some time ago, Professor Salim Al-Hassani. And it's a good, diagram that shows every aspect of our lives are connected to other aspects of our lives. And Allah made it for humanity to depend on each other, so we can have all kinds of transactions. We can see this today. For example, there is a breakdown in governance and institutions in Ukraine and in Russia, but see the impact. It impacts food and agriculture. It impacts energy and earth resources in different places of the world. And this is how, how this environmental commonality between us as a humanity. With respect to diversity, although religious truth is one in God's knowledge, as he said in the Quran, in the Din and Allah Islam, but it's multiple in the perception of human beings. And the Quran repeatedly underscores this fact. Even for those people who are involved in presenting Islam or in the dawah, we have been taught, because end of the day, it's people are free to choose what they want to choose, and all what you can say, lakum dinukum waliya din. So this idea of people in this earthly life, they have this perception of deen as a multiple, yeah. And the Quran clearly states this, because it is impossible people altogether to agree to a single religious truth. Okay, we need to do the work to give as a testimony of our religion. Other people also, they do the same, but it does not mean that we will be able to bring all the people to one truth, because God created human beings with the aim of being free in terms of their free will. And it's natural that this free will bring diversity. So the only way to make all human beings as one, it will require divine intervention. And Allah said that in the Quran, and he said this to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, if I wanted to make all people as believers, do you think it will be difficult for me? Yeah, but he wanted, this is part of the design. So even though religious diversity is an earthly fact, it is only in the hereafter that people will be held responsible for their worldly beliefs and deeds. Also, the last structure is the constructive conversation, because we need to have interaction between these commonalities and diversities and particularities. And the process of religious pluralism requires this existence of another element. And the Quran speaks about constructive conversation, as a sort of mode of reconciliation. The Quran provides ample evidence and methods of employing good word, kilmat tayyiba, as a powerful tool for communication or for achieving constructive conversation. And I can give example. We went through this more detail last time, the story of Sayyidina Musa and the Pharaoh. Okay, when Sayyidina Musa was asked and his brother to go and see Pharaoh, and they were asked to speak to him in a soft tone, yeah. And there is also the parable of a good word. This is a beautiful parable. We can reflect on that. So we must engage in constructive communication or constructive conversation. And, the underlying implication being that words, they have the power to change and to transform people, all right? The Quran kind of give principles of constructing conversation. It has to be purposeful conversation. It has to be factual, and it has to be non-judgmental, and it has to be non-manipulating. So these are the principles, and you have the references that you can reflect on that. Okay, so that completes our quick review of what we have done in part 1. Okay, so now I'm going to cover the material for part 2, and I'm going to start with the ethical foundations of normative religious pluralism. Now, the scope of ethical foundation in the Quran is just broad, but we can limit to the most important and relevant for the normative religious pluralism, and these are 5. First of all, is the freedom of belief, human dignity, integrity when dealing with others, and the imperative of no vilification of what is sacred to others, and forgiveness of others. So these are you can say, the 5 ethical foundations of normative religious pluralism in Islam. Now, if we go, with point by point, first of all, the freedom of belief is so important. No compulsion in religion is the bedrock freedom of belief in Islam. The verse was revealed in the context of a conflict between Jews and Muslims in a multicultural environment of Medina.
لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم.
So this verse, it poses a clear and unequivocal Islamic position with regards to freedom of belief. It prohibits compulsion in religion, whether among family members or in the context of interfaith conflict. Is absolutely critical in promoting freedom of belief as a universal value and as inviolable human right. So the issue of sometimes fighting the polytheists in the verse 9:5 is frequently presented to us like a counter argument. They say, if you're saying, no compulsion in religion, why do you have this verse? Let me refresh.
فإذا انسلخ الأشهر الحرم فاقتلوا المشركين حيث وجدتموهم وخذوهم واحصروهم واقعدوا لهم كل مرصد فإن تابوا وأقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة فخلوا سبيلهم إن الله غفور رحيم.
Okay, so our argument will be this fighting was not motivated by their faith. It was motivated by their constant aggression against, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his companions, and therefore it does not contradict, this very important principle that no compulsion in religion. The Quran 33:7-2 refers to human beings as inherently endowed with the free will or freedom of choice, which serves also as a foundation of freedom of belief.
إن إنا عرضنا الأمانة على السماوات والأرض والجبال فأبين أن يحملنها وأشفقن منها وحملها الإنسان إنه كان ظلوما جهولا.
So the freedom of choice, the free will that is part of our soul, all right, as stipulated in this verse, is the main actually boundary that distinguishing human being from the rest of creation. Because as the verse says, Allah, gave choice to all things to carry this amana. And what is this amana? This amana is this consciousness that we have and the free will that we have. This is the amana. And this was given to all other, creatures or creations, but they all rejected it, and it was the human being who accepted this. Therefore, we can say this ability to choose freely, or the right of freedom of belief, in this world, is tantamount to constituting the essence of human being. Our essence is on that freedom of belief. So the Quranic attitude toward the right of freedom of belief can be captured from these three stories critically presented in the Quran, expressing dialectics of freedom of belief versus oppression. So the people of the ditch, or Ashabul Ukhdud, and the sorcerers of Pharaoh, who were eventually, because they accepted the faith, they were punished for that, and the companion of the cave, the Ashabul Kahf. These are very, there are many others, but these are very powerful, I think, stories to reflect on this dialectic of freedom of belief against, oppression. Also in Islam, freedom in general and freedom of belief in particular is inviolable human right and reflect unchangeable characteristic of human nature, such that to recognize the right of freedom is actually to recognize the human nature. And I can quote Sayyidina Umar, back in the 7th century, he said, "How dare you enslave people, whereas they were born free?" And the same sort of expression has been echoed 1,000 years later by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the French philosopher. He opened his social contract treatise with his famous statement, "Man was born free, and everywhere he is in chains." Now, transgressing freedom of belief leads inevitably to serious interface tension, as articulated beautifully by Turkish scholar Said Nursi. He said, the freedom of non-Muslim is a branch of our own freedom. And therefore, we have to make sure the freedom of non-Muslims in terms of practicing their religion, because if we don't do that, we will find one day we are going to lose our own freedom as well of belief. So this is, I think, Muslims throughout history, they have understood this, and they have always been, they have dealt with the minorities this way. Although now, if we look at the human dignity, although freedom of belief could allow for the existence of diversity, but it is inadequate by itself to create a sincere encounter of different religious adherents. Why? Because it could easily result in segregation of religious communities. So you have like groups or ghettos of different religious communities, but this is not what Islam envisioned, the religious pluralism. So normative religious pluralism and tolerance should rest on another universal human value, which pertains equally to the nature of all human beings, and that is the human dignity. Human dignity is a universal human value that Islam considered as the second foundation of normative religious pluralism. Human dignity means simply the worth of a human being, and these philosophers, they have given a different definition of what is human dignity. Just to reflect on how human being has been dignified in Islam and in the Quran. First of all, man is created, and here men, I use it for human being, all right, for men and women. It's not a sexist terminology. Man is created in the best of mode. They've been created fi ahsan taqweem. And taqweem here, ahsan taqweem, is not only physical, but also in terms of spiritual, in terms of moral, in terms of intellectual. All right, this is how human dignity is looked at in Islam. Also, man is created by God with his own hands, figuratively, all right, which give something very special. And Allah breathed into man of his spirit. We are all carrier of some, divine spirits. Man is God's trustee on earth. Okay, so we have been selected to be the Khalifa, we represent God on earth. And God taught men all names, so we have been given the knowledge, we have been given the intellect, we have been given the power of reasoning, on articulation, all right? And angels were made to prostrate to men, okay? Allah honored men, like karamna bani Adam, but also in the same verse, man occupies a higher station in creation. So among all creation, men or human being has been given a much higher position. And of course, man is a carrier of trust. We already mentioned about this verse. We carry the free will and the consciousness that others don't. And of course, man is created with fitra, which is ability to recognize the creator, but also to discern what is right and what is wrong, and to be able to uphold the goodness. All right, so these 10 points really makes good arguments and good indication how human dignity, in Islam. And here it does not refer to Muslims, it refers to humanity. It doesn't refer, these are not characteristics that have been exclusively, describing, Muslims or believers, but this is for all humanity. The Quran establishes a link between human beings, their intellectual nature, and human dignity. So it establishes that human dignity is a universal right and value, it's inviolable and to be respected, emerging from God's love and God's care and God's compassion towards the humans. So all of these, where do they come from? From God's love, from God's care for us, and for God's compassion towards a human being. Now, intellectual power, ideologies and beliefs and worldviews and human dignity are interdependent or interconnected. Therefore, to respect the dignity of men, it means to respect their ideological beliefs and worldview differences. In stark contrast, to disregard or to disrespect other people's ideologies or beliefs or worldview, it means is a violation of their human dignity. Because here, you're part of what you're thinking, your ideas, your ideologies, your belief, your worldview. So the relationship between intellectual power and human dignity really demands respect of differences, but also seeks intellectual exchange. The preservation of human dignity has been central concept in Arabic culture. for those experts who are reading pre-Islamic poetry, they observe this, they say this. But the Quran has confirmed its value and has made it inviolable to all humanity in these four doctrines. First of all, no bearer of burdens can bear the burden, the bearer of burdens can bear the burden of the other. You know, this is very important doctrine. You know, we don't have this concept of, you know, of inheritance, of sin, you know, of sin of someone, you know, somebody else bear that sin. No, no bearer of burdens can bear the burden of the other. This is a very important principle, and Allah will not make you actually bear burden beyond your capacity. You know, this is another verse somewhere Allah said that. Also, the earth, as we said, you know, before, the earth belongs to God only, and He created it for the benefit of all humanity. And we don't own, you know, people, they have a lot of claims. These are my billion, these are my trillion, these are my, you know, but actually you own nothing. You are just a trustee, you know, you're a trustee on behalf of Allah. During this earthly life, you have been given those that wealth. Religious also affiliation or identity does not matter when it comes to exercise the right to life or hifdh nafs, but rather it's Allah's mercy that covers the whole mankind, and He provides all the essential needs for secured life. So preservation of life is not very specific to particular religion or believers, or, you know, this is something that universal for humanity, and every single person, regardless of his or her identity and or social status, can freely connect with Allah without any intermediary. This is what this is very important doctrine in Islam, because you don't need intermediation. You know, you can, every one of us, you know, can connect. A king can connect, and a very poor servant can connect to Allah, all right, directly. Now, so that's the second one. The third one is integrity when dealing with others. So integrity when dealing with the people of different religions is an essential ethical element, you know, which protects the process of normative religious pluralism from becoming mere diplomacy and pragmatism. The Quran's attitude towards freedom of belief and respect for human dignity indicate that integrity towards non-Muslims is a natural and obvious stance. And we can see this in this verse. Allah says He does not forbid you, you know, from dealing kindly and justly with others, you know, as long as they did not fight you, you know, because of your religion, and did not expel you from your homes. So we can deal with others, you know, kindly and justly. You know, you are only forbidden, you know, to deal with others kindly and justly with those who fight you because of religion and expel you from your home, until this you know, this issue is put in order, right? So you have references of those two verses that you can reflect on. Also, we have been, you know, the first point, we have been prohibited to revile what is sacred to others. The Quranic prescriptive ethical foundation of normative religious pluralism and tolerance seem to go further to secure for non-Muslim not only freedom of faith and human dignity and integrity, but also to secure the dignity of what is regarded as sacred to them. All right, and you can listen to this.
ولا تسبوا الذين يدعون من دون الله فيسبوا الله عدوا بغير علم كذلك زينا لكل أمة عملهم ثم إلى ربهم مرجعهم فينبئهم بما كانوا يعملون.
So even, if people of other faith, what they believe in don't make sense to you, but you have no right, to revive. All right, this is it's very, very clear, because this is a command. And the Arabic word la tasubbu used in this verse, has been translated as a revilement, but it goes further actually to mean humiliation. You should not humiliate, which means that the dignity of anything that people hold as sacred is protected from humiliation. And this is as part of this ethical foundation of normative religious pluralism. And the last one is, forgiveness of others. The importance of forgiveness of others in the process of religious pluralism and tolerance. It arises from the fact that human relationships, they often suffer from level of transgression, and in such situation, it is the ethical norm of forgiveness of others that reconciles. Otherwise, you will have these broken relationships. And these verses were all revealed at the time of conflict between the Muslims and the Meccan polytheists. So the Quran contains many verses that commands Muslims to offer forgiveness to non-Muslims. And the Quranic word used in these verses to express forgiveness are not limited to the visible act of reconciliation, but also to their mutual development and improvement. So in the Quran, human forgiveness is firmly related to belief, to faith, to Iman in Allah and the Day of Judgment. There is also a dialectical relationship between the human forgiveness and righteousness, your forgiveness and your being righteous, and Allah's forgiveness. They kind of linked. We can see this in this verse.
وسارعوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة عرضها السماوات والأرض أعدت للمتقين.
This is another verse that reflect on that.
الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين.
So in this verse, you can see the connection between righteousness and forgiveness. Yeah. We also have another verse here.
ولا يأتل أولو الفضل منكم والسعة أن يؤتوا أولي القربى والمساكين والمهاجرين في سبيل الله وليعفوا وليصفحوا ألا تحبون أن يغفر الله لكم والله غفور رحيم.
Now this verse is quite interesting because it commands us to forgive, but then it puts a question. We've been asked to let them forgive and overlook. Forgive and overlook. Sometimes we don't have to, we don't have to focus on the faults. We need to kind of overlook. But that what goes next is say, do you not wish that Allah should forgive you as well? Because if you want Allah to forgive you, don't you think that you should forgive others? And this is where the connection that I'm referring to, the human forgiveness and the Allah's forgiveness. If we want Allah to forgive us, we also need to be forgiving. Yeah. Okay, so now I will look into the last part of the presentation, and why religious truth and salvation do not provide ideal framework for religious pluralism and tolerance. And let's say if religious pluralism and tolerance were based on truth, on religious truth, it will aim at recognizing that all religions, equal possess the truth, what is normally referred as religious inclusivism or religious relativism. Sometimes they use philosophers and theologians, they use those terms. So religious pluralism based on truth is not recognized by Islam, since Islam teaches that there is a universal divine message that has been revealed to mankind through the one chain of Allah's prophets. And therefore, the correct religion is the one that is ordained by Allah, and is the one that was revealed to his chosen prophets. So we can't have, pluralism based just on the religious truth and, truth as if there is a multiple truths, all right? This is a very post-modern thinking. There is one universal truth that came from Allah, and this was revealed to all his prophets, from Adam to Noah, to Abraham, to Moses, to Jesus, to Muhammad sallallahu. So this is why Islam will not accept this. So in addition, the Quran prescribes accepting Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam along all other God's messengers who came before as a necessary condition for the correctness of faith and religion together. Because the Quran is very clear. You can't divide. You can't say, I believe in this prophet, but I don't believe in this one. That will not be acceptable, because it will defeat rationality, because it is very illogical. The same God who sent these prophets, and then you accept this prophet, but you reject this one, and or he sent to the scriptures, but you accept this scripture, but you don't accept this one. So this is very important. The Quran, in many verses, it praises the truth being held by some of the people of the book. But if you go deeper into, the Asbab and Nuzul and all of that background information, you'll find the people of the book being praised are those who had accepted Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as the final God messengers, together with the Quran as the last of God's revelation. And I give you some references of these verses you can read. So Islam, because we use Islam in general, but Islam has a dual meaning. So there is a meaning of the general Islam, what was revealed to all the prophets, peace be upon them all, and the specific Islam, what was revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is a necessary condition for correctness of faith, and hence for reaching to the religious truth is the acceptance of all God's prophets, including Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It will, if we say, so that's related to if pluralism was based on religious truths. Okay, what about based on salvation? It will aim at recognizing that followers of all religion will be saved in the hereafter, including people who make their own religion as well. Although in Islam, religious salvation is interdependently related to religious truth, which requires in the belief of all the God messengers, including Prophet Muhammad, and all the pristine scriptures, including the Quran, there seems still to exist a possibility for salvation not truly corresponding to religious truth, but salvation based on God's mercy. And this is the verse that I feel, puts a strong argument.
إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء ومن يشرك بالله فقد ضل ضلالا بعيدا.
So here it shows that Allah can forgive all other sins except for shirk, all right? So it means that there is a option or possibility of salvation based on God's mercy. Also, the Quran contains these two verses, which appears first to suggest possible salvation for those who have faith in God and who may not necessarily accept Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والصابئون والنصارى من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وعمل صالحا فلا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون.
Now, when studying their context, and this is for scholars who have studied, especially the Quran commentators who have studied this, they reveal that these two verses, they're referring to convert from Jewish, Christian, and Sabian traditions in order to dispel stigma which came to be unfairly attached to them, especially from the community where they came from. So these verses do not purport to lay down an exhaustive list of articles of faith, nor do they seek to spell out essentials of a genuine belief in Allah, which is meaningless unless accompanied by belief in His prophets. For it is through their agency alone that we came to know Allah, Allah's will, and we can abide by it. This is especially true of His final prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whose message is universal and not confined to any group or section of humanity. So there is you can say, unanimous agreement among classical and modern Quran scholars that any who believe in Allah in these verses requires belief in all the prophets, including the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for it is through the Prophet's agency alone that we came to know God and His will. Like a Muslim, to believe in all the Prophet is a part of Arkanul Iman. So if you reject that, you lose your Islam. If you reject any of the prophets, you lose your Islam. Like if you reject any of the books, you lose your Islam. However, there is a view that believers among Christians and Jews who have not heard of the new message of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or even among others, not necessarily Christians and Jews, any human being who has not heard the message of the Prophet Muhammad, or who experience a distorted image of his message, like what is today is being promoted, is a lot of Islamophobia and a lot of anti-Islam and anti-Muslim rhetorics and narratives in the public domain. Their salvation is possible based on God's mercy. Because they will be accountable for recognizing the oneness of God, because that's part of the fitrah. Every human being, we're also the caring of amana. So we were there in the spiritual realm And, we accepted that Allah is our Lord. And therefore, and Allah says in the same verse that so that tomorrow, on the day after, you cannot deny Him. So that's it. You can say the minimum that that would be, accountable. So considering the circumstances and lack of knowledge, this view is supported by this verse.
وما كان الله ليضل قوما بعد إذ هداهم حتى يبين لهم ما يتقون إن الله بكل شيء عليم.
So belief in the prophethood of Prophet Muhammad is thus an integral part of and a logical corollary of belief in Allah. It is also an essential test for genuineness of belief in Allah for Muslims. And this becomes clear when the two verses are read in conjunction with other relevant verses, because the Quran, you can't take one verse and make judgments. Quran, you have to look at it in a holistic way, because the verses, they kind of explain each other. So you can't take one verse, So I've tried in this presentation to kind of bring these verses from different parts of the Quran. Therefore, universality of religious salvation cannot be used as a framework of religious pluralism in Islam. That's the reason. Okay, so we can deal with people of other faith, in those in an ethical way, and we have given those foundations. All right, and but God's mercy is inclusive for all in this world. To gain God's mercy in the hereafter requires acceptance of all God's messengers, including Prophet Muhammad. This is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So the first one is for everyone in this life, but the other one is specific for the believers. So to summarize, the Islamic normative religious pluralism and tolerance, it focuses on the worldly dimensions of ethical behavior of the participant, rather than claims of eschatological dimension of religious truth and salvation. Therefore, normative religious pluralism and tolerance is encompassing human beings entirely, not only co-religionists. It's not only for Muslims and Muslims. It means that people belonging to other religions, or even with people who have no religion, we should treat them based on universal human ethics and dignity and human values. Normative religious pluralism and tolerance requires engagement in commonalities, but at the same time, respect for religious diversity and particularities, making it the most central to interfaith relationship and peace-building process. And I give you some reference for anyone who is interested to go beyond. So this ends our talk. Back to you, Sister Ahlam.